Yesterday, I did a video, War is Not a Movie. You know, I get fed up talking about politics and certain aspects of the world because it's so corrupt. But, you know, a lot's happened since that video. We've had the killing of the Iranian leader. And that was so we had America attacking Iran, and that's what I was commenting on. And then since then, we've had the news that the Iranian leader has now been killed, which kind of changes the narrative a little bit because some people will rejoice and say, America's doing great things, Trump is getting rid of tyrants, and all those things. You know, but for me, it doesn't really change the narrative all that much. So there's my video there. War is not a movie. Now we're doing another video. I don't intend to keep doing a commentary on this situation. It drives me crazy. But as you got, there was sort of rumors coming through after I did my video. For instance, there was news. It wasn't confirmed that the Iranian leader had died. But again, you can't trust sources sometimes. You know, the Israelis are going to say what they want to say for their own propaganda. America's going to say what it wants to say. You know, Trump often says nonsense, and then it ends up being false. So you couldn't really just take it as it's given. But now we've got confirmation. It says Khamenei, I don't know if that's how to pronounce it, is dead. I mean, from all understanding, he was old anyway, so I don't think he had particularly long left naturally. And when I talk on these things, it's not an endorsement of the other side. So I think if people, naturally will get a misunderstanding of that. If you talk about one thing, it looks like an endorsement. That's not the case at all. I don't know the ins and outs of the Middle East. And the reason that is because everyone, doesn't matter what region of the world you are, you're likely to get fed false propaganda. So, for instance, if you're in Russia, you're going to get false propaganda of the West. If you're in the West, you're going to get false propaganda about Russia and the East. And it's just how it is. So whatever you're brought up with is really how your beliefs are going to be garnered by a lot of time it's the media. And I have an immense distrust of the media. So I could sit there and consume all the content on it. But it's like, from what narrative though? You can paint this person as this, but is that entirely true? I don't know. So I don't really follow it all that much because of those things. But what we think about, if you follow people's actions. Now, it wasn't long ago, I don't think it was that much, a few months ago, where Iranians were protesting against the Iranian leadership, and it was met with brute force. And it was deplorable. It was absolutely disgusting. Many people lost their lives. There's people just coming out of their shops and they're protesting, and there's other people just coming out protesting. And the regime is so barbaric. It might be a religious reason as well. Again, I haven't gone to the deep aspects of it, where there was executions for it. So instead of just going to prison for maybe a disturbance, breaking the peace, whatever you want to call it, that people are actually getting executed for it. And that's really barbaric. You know, no one should have autonomy over someone else's life to such a degree at all, in my opinion. So the way that the ruling was there, yeah, it was deplorable. But as we've seen throughout history, and not even too far into history, one regime gets replaced with another. And it doesn't always work out how we're sold the dream, you know. So how others are sold the dream and how we're told everything's going to happen, it rarely works out that way. So you've lost maybe a tyrannical leader in Iran. The question then comes, who takes over that? Because no one has from my understanding, there's no troops on the ground, so there's no control over what happens in a foreign country. So it's up to that country to decide its fate. So is someone naturally promoted from within who has similar policies and beliefs as the previous leader? Or is it going to be a democratically decided vote who, the people choose? That's interesting because it could continue the same trend anyway. So nothing really evolves. The other side is, I find a lot of politics, for instance, and the way the world is governed and policed by some countries who think they're better than everybody else, it's hypocritical. And again, I think people follow the narrative too much from the media and from wherever you're from, because that's the policies. So, for instance, America, if we think about it this way, and you see it in the movies, America's used to policing the world. So if they recognize either a threat or they see something to exploit, whatever the narrative, they'll sell you a dream. And they'll make an excuse as to why they're going to go and do this. So they might decide, you know what, we need to usurp a leader from that country. Either we're going to arrest them or we're going to assassinate them. And a lot of time they just kill them. It's just barbaric, really. But a lot of time you think, okay, like if you genuinely want change, there's ways to go about it. But who are they to decide the fate of another country? And it's happening time and time again. We've seen it with the Venezuela leader. Now, these are people who, there are reports that they were all corrupt. And, you know, it seems to be the people do say that as well. So, you know, there's evidence to support that that was the case based on the way the citizens felt towards those leaders. So, yeah, there was, but then what chaos ensues after is the question as well. But also, let's say America, for instance, they take out the Venezuelan leader. They've arrested him now, and they're charging him and putting him through the courts and all sorts of shit. In this case, with Iran, they've decided to bomb Iran, and they're going to take out the leader of Iran. It looks like they've been successful with that, which seemed impossible before. Because they're quite smart, the leaders, you know. They do protect themselves, and they, you know, try to create decoys and all sorts. But if you think of it this way, and this will be quite controversial, what I'm going to say next. But why is it one country can police the world and dictate and determine the state of every other country, but they feel invincible themselves? So, for instance, if you follow the media, it would seem justified. This action is justified. And you can understand it to a degree, like I just said. If they're tyrants, that's understandable. If it's going to help the country and there was no other means, you can go, okay, it was a means to an end. But what about when leaders more closer to home are behaving in a similar way as those abroad? Is it then fair game that what happens to those leaders could happen to their leaders? Now, I'm not trying to incite anything or anything. I'm just showing hypocrisy. Trump would feel emboldened. He'd feel invincible. But what does he do closer to home? There's evidence, so it's not even accusation to this point. There's evidence suggesting that Donald Trump, when he was younger, abused young children. And that's been reported. That's what the Epstein files are all about. And not just once. This was a habitual behavior where he felt that the value of those children's lives, they were minimal or nothing compared to his fantasies and sexual desires towards having an experience. No care for the life of those who were hurt and abused. That's the person who's the president of the United States. And then you look at the atrocities since. So, you know, he sells a dream and he does something else. He's incredibly racist. He's just a very deplorable person. He incited riots when he's president. He was under threat because he was losing elections and all sorts of shit. So as soon as something shady comes up about him, he acts in anger and vengeful. So if we're going to say the other leaders in other countries are tyrants and they need to be removed, what's to suggest then that Trump's any better? So then, at least what I'm getting at, let's say another country decided, you know what, that's a leader that needs to be removed. So let's say someone does something and you know, they're shooting missiles at one country. Let's say another one. Because I don't know that, if you think about this, countries that are used to being attacked, they have air defense mechanisms. I don't know if countries that feel emboldened and they feel safe have air defenses. Like America's a huge country. I wouldn't be surprised if there is no air defenses. Where are they placed? And I think in Europe we've got a similar issue. So let's say America keeps attacking everyone else, and it only takes one rogue nation. They say, right, enough of this, and they target Trump. Now, if Trump was taken out by a missile, for instance, how would America react to that? That'd be a declaration of war, wouldn't it? But yet, when America does it to another country, it's seen as a justified reaction. So a lot of people, they don't have a balanced perspective on the way they see the world. They see it from their own lens and the way the media sells it and the way their leader speaks. So it's considered fair game for America to attack wherever it wants And people think, yeah, well, that had to happen, blah, blah, blah. If it happens the other way, that's disgusting, deplorable. We must act in revenge. So you can't be so surprised when other countries act with revenge when you attack their country. So if you think about most leaders around the world, I'm not saying all of them, of course, but there's corruption everywhere. So what's going to happen here? We have missiles going at every single country. I think if it's not turning a blind eye to a degree, but there's different cultures, there's different religions, there's different ideologies in areas of the world. So I'm not going to sit here and presume to understand the Middle East. I'm not from the Middle East. That's not a culture I'm familiar with. Haven't even visited there. So who would I be to have influence on the Middle East, for instance? That's for those who are local to create the change in the region. Of course, you can raise awareness, you can talk about it, and you can hope that change occurs. But it takes the people to usurp those governments and those places. I don't think it's personally for other countries to start shooting rockets and all sorts of shit at each other to foster change. We've seen it time and time again. America tried to take over Afghanistan. It didn't work out too well, and it kept the constant revolt. Did the same in Iraq. The transition of power very, very rarely goes smoothly. But my main point really is, who is it for anyone to decide the fate of another country? Because often those that do, and they dare take action, they're not hardly ever as any better than the previous people. So if you look at, if I think of Trump, I don't think of him any better than this leader, and Trump's calling him an evil tyrant, one of the worst people in history. I think the same when I think of Trump. It's the same shit. But instead, he's the leader of a very powerful country. So he has protections. It's the hypocrisy of it all that drives me crazy. So yeah, anyway, this was never going to be a long video. I just wanted to clarify my previous video to say, look, this isn't me standing by someone else. It's just recognizing the hypocrisy of the world and saying, look, this isn't right. Like, why should this one be able to do that? No repercussions. They just feel emboldened to just try to police the world. It's not even policing the world. If you say policing, you think they're trying to do justifiable actions. They're protecting people. If you look at Trump doesn't protect people. He's got a freaking huge ego. He just wants praise. All he wants is recognition for doing things. So he'll definitely be lauding this up. I'm the one that brought this one down. I'm the one that did this. And he thinks that makes him memorable. Those are the things. And he wants to distract people from the corruptions and crimes he's done in the past and still continuing to do today. I mean, you see his whole administration of dodgy as shit. They're all protecting each other. None are being held accountable yet. Once their time in office is finished, I've no doubt all the litigation's going to come after all of them. Because they're all corrupt. You've got Pam Bondi, who's supposed to be releasing all the Epstein files, is redacting anything that suggests that Trump or anyone connected to the administration are protected to protect their reputation and keep them all out of jail. Well, that's not her job. So she's exceeded her power. So when she comes out of office, you would expect her to be arrested and processed through the courts, of course. And you go through all of them. You've got Pete Hegseth. He's supposed to be in charge of the military. I can't remember. Is it Secretary of Defense? And yet he was killing innocent Venezuelans. Yeah, okay. You could argue that maybe they were doing drug trafficking, but it didn't warrant their death. You can arrest people. So there's war crimes attached to that. And then you've got unjustifiable actions where they are attacking. You didn't see anyone supporting the United States with their attack on Iran. Now, again, whether someone's a tyrant or not, it's whether it's legal under international law. And it would suggest if you're going rogue and doing things like solo or with just another rogue agent, so America and Israel, they don't have many friends. It would suggest that perhaps it's a violation of international law. Because you shouldn't be able to just go violently attack any country, just dispose of a freaking leader, just because you don't like them or you don't like their regime. It's not for everybody to enforce that, especially violently. But anyway, yeah, so I just see the corruptions in the world, and it's kind of like if you don't raise awareness to the corruption, though, it would just go unchecked. And if you look at Trump's administration, they keep fading. They just try to fade with an illusion over here to hide from over here. It's like, don't take your eye off the ball. It's like someone that's got the cups. You know when they do that cup thing, they keep moving the cups around, so you lose track. Oh, I don't know what's going on. So much to deal with. No, no, no. If this is a serious allegation, this is a serious situation, so consider the Epstein thing. He keeps moving the cup around. Just keep your eye on the cup. Keep your eye on the cup. You can still listen to this after. Once his cup stands still a little bit, keep your eye on the cup. You can still see what's going on, but don't let him off the hook. That's what they want. He now wants to be seen as a saviour, I've no doubt. Haven't heard from him yet, but I'm guessing he's going to want to be a saviour. And he's going to keep saying, well, why do we keep talking about the Epstein files? Why don't you want people to talk about the Epstein files? Why would you not want justice? Why do you want to keep pretending like it doesn't exist or it doesn't matter? When people have had their lives ruined, it's not just their childhood ruined. I think that's the thing. A lot of us haven't experienced what others have been through. You can only assume and think about what you've been through. Imagine the cruelty of living with what they've been through, to be abused by grown adults, where your body has been violated time and time again. I mean, I don't want to go into that, but this is completely different to this. But this is the leader that some people praise because they're blinded by his freaking nonsense. There's evidence of children that have been abused by men to the point when they're bleeding. They're literally bleeding in pain on various parts of their body, internally and externally. They've been used as just a piece of meat, and their innocence destroyed. And when that happens at a young age, it's naturally going to have a huge problem on your psyche. As children, we're impressionable. So that's how we see the world. And then we process from there. It's really, really hard to regain our identity once it's been destroyed from a young age. Not impossible, but it's so hard. And I think for anyone to take that innocence away from someone else is truly disgusting. Like, and there's not even a word that could, it's just cruel and evil. To play any part in that, no matter how small or big, is disgusting. So how the hell anybody can elect someone to be in charge of a country and be the face of the nation who has already got crimes against his name that he's been found guilty of? And then there's even more disturbing crimes perpetrated that still need to be investigated, that keeps getting hidden. And then some people want to look up to them like they're some idol. They want to revere them. It's disgusting. And what they don't realize is they think he cares. He only cares about himself. He would do that to you and your children, your family. Just because you adore him doesn't mean he respects you. He doesn't even respect anyone. Doesn't respect women, doesn't respect children. Anyone that says anything against him, anyone with intelligence. He just wants a load of sheep to worship him and praise him and say he's the next Messiah. He's an arsehole. And he knows his time is coming to an end. And he's worried about his legacy because that's all he cares about. That's all he's ever cared about. And he feels he deserves far more than he had. But he's one of the most evil people to have existed. And I don't say that lightly. In my opinion, Trump will go down in similar vein as Hitler. It's fascism. He doesn't like other races, other religions. He doesn't like anybody else. And he's going around just acting like he can just do what the hell he wants. And he's destroying America from the inside out. The whole reputation of a nation has been destroyed in one administration. You know, I think he's a tyrant. And he's no better than the ones he keeps attacking.